The Jersey standoff over a post-Brexit fishing dispute. Now France sends in 2 patrol boats. Tensions flare on both sides. The French patrol in response to the UK sending in the Royal Navy. The escalation follows talk of France cutting off Jersey's electricity and blockading the port. How can all this be resolved? Also ahead, killed while trying to help a man on his street. Investigations continue into the stabbing of a father of 4. President Biden backs a move to make it easier for some countries to make their own COVID vaccines. Could it help or harm the fight against the global pandemic? And
oh, Annie, oh! I'm not your daddy.
Kid Creole sells all his hits with the coconuts. Why are so many artists giving up their royalties?
This is the ITV Lunchtime News with Nina Hossain.
Good afternoon. France has now sent 2 patrol boats to Jersey as a post-Brexit fishing dispute intensifies this lunchtime. It follows Britain's move deploying a pair of Royal Navy vessels to the Channel Island. Dozens of French fishing boats have gathered there to protest new licences now needed to fish in Jersey's waters. So with this current show of strength from both sides, can the row be resolved through diplomacy? Neil Connery has the latest.
First light off the Jersey coast and around 60 vessels, most of them French, arrive, many with lit flares, as fishermen protest over their post-Brexit rights. They made their way to the island's main port at St Helier and set about blockading the entrance. Some Jersey vessels did their best to prevent the French fishermen from gaining access as they blocked their way in. Feelings were running high, but the French vessels succeeded in getting into St Helier's port. As the action continued, 2 Royal Navy ships, including HMS Tamar, patrolled the waters around Jersey. With tensions rising, 2 French patrol vessels are also nearby. French fishermen say their rights are unfairly restricted by licences issued by Jersey under a new system. The problem is that Jersey wants to extend its waters, this fisherman says, and we don't want to work in the waters of Jersey. We work in our waters. French fishing leaders have spoken of their anger at the new licensing process.
Out of 86 licenses being asked, only 21 have been issued. So I think the French government is not prepared to be bullied by the British government by these new rules and regulations, which don't tally up with the agreement.
But Jersey's government insists it's trying to work with the French to deal with the issues.
The main problem that we've had is the lack of communication. The new system means that the EU talks to the UK, and eventually, we get crumbs of information on both sides. And that has been the major problem. That has been the main problem.
France has threatened to cut off electricity to the island over the row. The Prime Minister spoke with the Chief Minister of Jersey this morning as the situation continues to be monitored. Neil Connery, ITV News.
Our correspondent Rupert Evelyn joins us now from Jersey. Choppy waters post-Brexit, Rupert.
Absolutely, and as I stand here now, having spent the better part of 6 or 7 hours out there on the water today, I can tell you that the blockade appears to have come to an end. Depending on your perspective on these things, the French are either in retreat and heading home, or they have heard enough from the discussions that they had with the minister here for now, to sort of temper some of the anger that they feel about being excluded from fishing in these waters. I think, as you've just seen, it's been a morning of antagonism, really. The French feel very aggrieved. A lot of the Jersey fishers also feel quite angry with the way in which Brexit has unfolded here. And I think there is a lot more talking to do. It was said at those discussions that there has until now been a breakdown in communications. For now, at least, they are talking. It is a peace of sorts, but the real issues still need to be resolved.
Rupert Evelyn, thank you very much for that update. Thank you. Police in Essex are continuing to investigate the death of a father of 4 who was stabbed when he went to help another man. James Gibbons was killed just hours after celebrating his twin daughter's birthdays. Neighbours have today paid tribute to the 34-year-old plumber who died on the street where he lived in Leindon. Rebecca Barry is there this lunchtime. What more do we know about this, Rebecca?
Well, the police have now brought in specialist equipment to search through the drains here, presumably looking for a murder weapon. All of the people I've spoken to here say James Gibbons was a lovely man and a brilliant father to his 4 children. The 34-year-old had been having a barbecue to celebrate the birthday of his 2-year-old twins when he went outside to help another man. He was stabbed to death just metres from his home. 5 teenagers have been arrested, 3 boys and 2 girls aged from 13 to 16. I spoke to one of James's friends.
He was amazing, absolutely amazing. He's the best dad I know. Like, I've never seen such a close, happy family. Like, it's rare to see nowadays, it really is. And they were so happy, like so happy. Didn't deserve it at all. Nobody deserves it.
His family say he was always the kind of person prepared to help anyone less fortunate than himself. They say that they are absolutely broken at this pointless loss, and friends have set up a fundraising page to try and support his partner and children.
Rebecca Barry, thank you. President Biden has backed a move to allow some countries to make their own versions of existing COVID vaccines. The White House is supporting a proposal to remove patents on the vaccines to make them cheaper to manufacture, saying the extraordinary circumstances of the pandemic call for extraordinary measures. But the drug industry has warned it could lead to counterfeit vaccines. So, is it a game changer or a gamble? Sangeeta Lal joins me now. Will the UK and the EU do the same as America?
Well, there is a strong possibility they could. In the last few hours, we've heard from the head of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, who said the EU is now ready to discuss this waiver. And that's quite a big move because they haven't moved on that position since this has been discussed, which has been discussed for some time now. And essentially throughout that time, the EU and the UK have opposed the waiver. But President Biden's stance on this is already having a big impact, acting potentially as a catalyst for change that many countries like India and South Africa have been pushing for about 6 months now. So at the moment here, the Prime Minister Boris Johnson hasn't commented on this just yet, but is coming under much more scrutiny as things develop. So what is the reluctance? Well, firstly, if you remove a patent, then you remove the incentive, companies say, to develop a vaccine like they have in record times. And secondly, even if you do remove a patent, you lift it temporarily, open up this vaccine recipe book, if you like, to the rest of the world. Not all countries have the technologies to develop it and produce it. And by the time you teach people and set up plants to do so, what benefit does that really have? Well, the World Health Organization is very much supportive of this and say it would be a vital move to vaccine equality across the world.
It's complicated, isn't it? Look, we've got new figures out today for how many people and who is and who isn't taking the COVID jab here when offered. What can you tell us about that?
Well, the latest figures, broken down by ethnicity and age and religious affiliation, show that it's adults over the age of 50 identifying as Black Caribbean and Black African are the most reluctant to have a vaccine still, and those who are Muslim or Buddhist are the religious groups still with lower uptake. Obviously, a lot of work is being done in those communities to improve confidence in the vaccine.
Sangeeta Lal, thank you for all that. Thank you. Voting is underway at polling stations across Britain amid a bumper set of elections. 48 million people are eligible to cast their ballot in what's been called Super Thursday. In England, there are around 5,000 council seats up for grabs at 143 local authorities. There's also voting for 13 directly elected mayors who hold power in bigger cities and regions. And in Hartlepool, a by-election is being held for a new MP there. In Wales, voters are choosing the 60 members of the Senedd, the Welsh Parliament. While in Scotland, all 129 MSPs are facing re-election at Holyrood. In a moment, we'll speak to our political correspondent Dan Hewitt about when we can expect the first results. But first, our Scotland correspondent Peter Smith joins us from North Berwick. Peter.
Yeah, well, the polling stations like this one here opened at 7 o'clock this morning. Voting ends at 10 o'clock tonight. We've already seen the leaders of Scotland's three main parties casting their vote. Nicola Sturgeon for the SNP, Douglas Ross for the Scottish Conservatives and Anna Sarwar for Scottish Labour already been to their polling station. It is, of course, an election in the middle of a pandemic, so you're asked to bring your own pen. If you don't, you'll be given a pencil like this. 250,000 of them have been made for Edinburgh polling stations alone. And because it is a pandemic, the counting will not be done overnight. The counting begins at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. It's likely in Scotland we will not see a final result until Saturday night, possibly even on Sunday morning, and 65 is the magic number for a majority here. That's the view from here in the national elections in Scotland. Now over to Daniel Hewitt, who has the picture in England's local elections from Westminster.
That's right, Peter. In England, some votes will be counted overnight. The results from the range of elections taking place here will start to trickle in the early hours of Friday morning. The much-anticipated result of that parliamentary by-election in Hartlepool is expected at around 5 a.m, though the vast majority of results from the local elections and mayoral elections will be coming Friday in the day into Saturday, some into Sunday and Monday. Now, Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, has already been out this morning casting his vote here in London. The leader of the Labour Party, Sir Keir Starmer, too. He's also been out casting his vote. There are around 41 million eligible voters in England. Just as in Scotland, voters here are also being asked to bring along their pen and pencil. Also in England, if you have coronavirus or are being told to self-isolate, you have until 5 p.m. tonight to vote by proxy. In other words, apply to have someone vote on your behalf. Contact the Electoral Commission or your local authority to apply for that.
Daniel Hewitt and Peter Smith, thank you very much both. Thank you. Still to come, Sir Chris Hoy on doping in cycling and why we should all think about biking to work. Plus, Kid Creole sells all his hits with the coconuts. We'll find out why. First, the delayed Tokyo Olympics and Paralympics will look and feel very different because of the pandemic. But Team GB will be there and will be sporting their new kit. Unveiled today, the outfits are said to represent unity and diversity. They nod to the host country, Japan, and are made for some recycled material. The Games will begin on July the 23rd. Our reporter Warren Nettleford was at the launch event for the kit.
It's just 78 days now to go until the Olympic Games begin in Tokyo. Now, of course, they have been delayed by a year because of the pandemic. We're here in Somerset House today for the launch of the Team GB kit. It's very much an epic launch, more James Bond rather than Olympic, but one of the wearers of the kit is Shauna Coxey, who was on top of Somerset House earlier on. Shauna, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, you're going to be competing in your first Olympic Games in the event of sport climbing. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it seems totally surreal, to be honest, especially after the last year. For me in my career, I never expected climbing to get part of the Games. So yeah, to now be stood here wearing the team kit, being a few months out from the Games, yeah, it's just totally incredible.
And, you know, how training during the pandemic, what's that been like for you?
The pandemic definitely presented challenges. I think as athletes we're familiar with facing adversity, especially, you know, if you've been through injury. So adapting and being creative around training is essential. And my team have been absolutely incredible to be innovative and just keep me training and keep me motivated throughout.
And not having the Team GB, you know, fans there to cheer you on in Tokyo, what's that going to be like for you?
I think it is really sad, you know, that like our friends and our family and the fans can't be there. But ultimately, it's important and paramount that the games happen in a safe manner. And if that's what's necessary to do it, it's got to happen, you know. And I think we'll feel that support from home. And the Olympics is a beacon of hope, and it transcends so many boundaries. So if it can happen and it can happen safely, that's incredible, to be honest, after the last year for sure.
Thank you, Shauna. Thanks so much for that. So the Olympic Games begin in 78 days' time. Team GB start heading out in July. And for us fans at home, it's a case of watching on television and wishing them well.
Absolutely. Warren Nettleford with the Olympic climber, Shauna Coxey there. Well, one athlete well known for wearing Team GB's Olympic kits is Sir Chris Hoy. The 6-time Olympic champion is backing a campaign to urge people to go back to work on a bike if they return to their offices later this year. I spoke to him just before we came on air and asked him for his advice for anyone who thinks they are not fit enough to cycle to work.
I would say to them, give it a go. You know, I think a lot of us underestimate what we're capable of. And, you know, even a 5-mile cycle to work, most of us, no matter how fit you are or how fit you think you are, you could be capable of doing it in about 30 to 45 minutes.
Yeah, one of the main concerns is safety. Are all our cities set up enough to protect cyclists now? It suddenly doesn't feel like it most of the time.
No, I think there's a lot more can be done. We are heading in the right direction. There is a general level of awareness that we do need to do something about it to provide the infrastructure for cyclists and to encourage people to get on their bikes, because you have to make it appealing. But it's getting better. But I still think there are ways to make it easier and to build your confidence and to plan your route. And there's all kinds of tips online at British Cycling's website for, you know, encouraging people to commute. And we've seen this huge increase in cycling since the first lockdown. 5.5 million people have been inspired to go out and buy a bike and to get cycling. So we're trying to capitalise on that. And as people go back to work and perhaps don't want to go on public transport, we're trying to steer them away from that, the choice of getting back in their car and clogging up the roads to getting on 2 wheels, improving their physical, mental well-being and reducing, you know, pollution and making the planet a bit greener.
Look, we've seen the Team GB's Tokyo kit unveiled today. Are our memories, golden memories of the London Olympics, tarnished by the former chief doctor at that time for cycling, Dr. Richard Freeman, being found guilty earlier this year of ordering testosterone for doping? Will we view that Games differently now in light of that?
I don't think so. I think we need to get to the bottom of it. We need to find out what the truth of the matter is. And I think that for the athletes and for the members of the team, they're all keen for that too. And I guess we have to wait and see what comes from that story.
Yeah, what do you think the truth is?
I have no idea. I guess we're all waiting to find out.
In terms of Tokyo and the athletes due to head out there for the start of the Games in July, it's going to be a difficult one, isn't it, in a strange atmosphere. What's your advice for them when they're psychologically preparing for those Games with a very different feel because of the pandemic?
Well, I guess, you know, they have to, first of all, assume the Games are going ahead. And as an athlete, it's, you focus on each day, one day at a time. And once they get out there, they'll be focused on performance. They'll not be worrying about the fact that there's, no fans out there to support them. It will feel very different to, a normal Olympic Games. But I think we're all just relieved that the Games are going ahead and that there is some sort of competition happening at all.
Yeah, and something to look forward to indeed. Sir Chris Hoy, thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
The Bank of England has raised its growth forecast for the UK as the economy is expected to grow at its fastest rate since World War II. The bank predicts GDP, a measure of the size of the economy, will rebound by 7.25% this year, up from its previous forecast of 5%. It comes after the UK suffered the sharpest hit to the economy in 300 years during the pandemic. And SpaceX has successfully launched and landed its Starship rocket prototype for the first time. The previous 4 test flights ended in fiery explosions. SpaceX founder Elon Musk hopes to use the rocket ship to send people to Mars. Finally, his band got us dancing in the early 80s, but now Kid Creole has sold the rights to all his hits. He's the latest artist to sell the writers' royalties of a total of 250 songs. So why the trend and why now for him? Well, he says he wants to look after his coconuts way into the future. Faye Barker spoke to the man about his music.
Kid Creole's been making music since the 70s. Hits that are still enjoyed today, but the way we now listen to music affects how the artists make money.
Streaming has messed up the music industry in a major way.
August Darnell, the man behind The Kid, has just sold some of the rights to his songs, a deal involving the royalties of more than 250 tracks.
I've always regarded my song catalog as my babies, so I love them. So I've been looking for the right company that could take them to the next level.
I believe that artists should be able to make a living from recording, producing, writing songs. And right now you can't because of the streaming model.
Selling music rights is complicated but isn't new. In the 80s, the Beatles' back catalogue was controversially bought by Michael Jackson. Taylor Swift's master recordings of her early albums were sold twice without her knowledge, with little benefit to her. And more recently, a producer who worked on Take That's first album sold his rights to the same London-based company who's done the deal with Kid Creole.
We want to work with artists who've had that legacy, have those evergreen tracks, and we'll continue to have that with our help to be future-proofed with the right metadata to make sure that when you say, hey Alexa, play me Kid Creole's greatest hits, that those tracks are delivered.
Kid Creole plans to use the money from the deal to bring this off-Broadway stage show to the UK. And he hopes it'll keep his music alive and easily available for generations to come. Faye Barker, ITV News.
Mary's here later from everyone on today's Lunchtime team. Bye-bye.